Happy Tuesday, everybody. Happy Tuesday. If you are on here, get those likes up. Get those likes up. Tag anybody. Share this with someone that you think may find it interesting. Um, Hot off the press, guys. I'm sure you guys have been hearing this like the last 24 hours. This is trending everywhere. So many reports about it. So many people talking about it. So this should be interesting. This should be interesting. I'm just going to give my take on things, and then if we have
it's
time,
been like the terms. It's so easy. A caveman can do it.
Yeah. So I'm just going to give my thoughts in it, and then if we have time at the end, I may open it up for a few calls. So yeah, guys, for those of you who are hopping in, get those likes up. Also, if you would like to show support to the show, be sure to support me on Cash App or Venmo Shay Sade. Also, Super Chat. I will acknowledge all super chats. Guys, if you like what this is about, if you like what I'm doing here, be sure to show support. I do depend upon your support to keep this running. So support your favorite content creators. And so let's get into it. Hey, what's going on? What's going on? So I see some who are in support of it. I see some who they seem to be more neutral, some who are not feeling it. So yeah, we're going to get into it a little bit. This should be an interesting discussion. Just real quick, I'm going to just pull up real quick a few different reports to kind of give you guys a sense of what's going on if you guys haven't already heard or haven't had a chance to delve deep. So we're going to start here with a report that NPR shared, just to kind of bring you guys up to speed. Well, no, actually, so the story is, I think it's Politico. I think they're the one that actually leaked the source that essentially the Supreme Court is looking to overturn Roe versus Wade. But I want to get into this because it has some interesting statements in here from a few different governors that I want to highlight that I think really speaks to the way the country right now is, quite frankly, divided over this issue. So, okay, let's go. It says governors swiftly react to reports of leaked draft opinion of Roe versus Wade. And here it reads, a majority of the U.S. Supreme Court has voted to overturn the landmark 1973 ruling Roe versus Wade that established the right to abortion nearly 50 years ago. According to a leaked draft opinion published by Politico on Monday. So again, it was a leaked draft published by Politico. Not totally sure who did it to this point, but all we know is that I don't think it was supposed to get out. Nevertheless, it did. It says National Public Radio could not immediately confirm the authenticity of the draft Politico published. It says the draft was written by Justice Samuel Alito and circulated in February, according to the Politico reports. The report said that Alito was joined by Justices Clarence Thomas and all three former President Donald Trump's nominees, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett. Politico reported that Justices Stephen Brewer, Alana Kagan, and Sonia Sotomayor were working on dissents. It was unclear how Chief Justice John Roberts voted. So again, this is drafted back up in February, yada, yada, yada. It says Roe versus Wade established a constitutional right to abortion in 1973, although abortion rights look to be in peril after arguments at the court late last year. It was unclear whether the justices would merely hollow out Roe or indeed strike it down. It now appears that they have done the latter. Though, as a Politico report itself noted, the leaked majority opinion was a draft that could still change. So again, there is a possibility that this could still change. There is still a possibility. We don't know. I mean, it's very likely it will not, but I think, in the month or so to come, because I think they don't actually rule on it until like June or July, if I'm not mistaken. But there's still time. There is still time for this to be destroyed. But either way, it's not looking like it. It's looking like they're going to move forward with this. So it says in the 98-page draft, Alito said Roe was wrongly decided, saying the issue should be decided by politicians, not courts. If Roe is reversed, it would not federally outlaw abortion. However, it would shift the power to states to decide on the procedure's legality. 21 states are poised to immediately ban or acutely curtail access to abortions if the Supreme Court chooses to overturn or weaken Roe versus Wade, according to the Guttmacher Institute, a research group in favor of abortion rights. Reactions to the report, however, were swift. With hours after the Politico report published, demonstrators assembled outside the Supreme Court early on Tuesday, many calling for the preservation of the 1973 law. Several governors issued statements following the news. Here's what they said. So again, although this is not solidified, right, there is still a possibility that things could change. Nevertheless, word got out there. We know there's a lot of strong feelings behind this entire topic, a lot of strong feelings. And so naturally, different governors and politicians have taken it upon themselves to respond. There's some sources saying that this leak was partially done as a way to kind of give Democrats an edge so that they can at the very least try to galvanize and hopefully change things or cause enough of a ruckus that it doesn't happen. I mean, there's all kinds of different reports, but either way, governors are now quickly responding. So here's a few statements that are issued from some governors. Alabama says, this unprecedented leak is concerning, outrageous, and a blatant attempt to manipulate the sacred procedures of the U.S. Supreme Court. Those responsible should be held accountable. My prayer is that Roe versus Wade is overturned and that life prevails, said Alabama Governor Kay Ivey, a Republican. So Alabama definitely seems like it is, again, anti-abortion. And you're going to see that. From what I understand, there are about 20 states that, if this is actually overturned, are pretty much going to ban abortion. About 20 states. Now we see Arkansas. It says, I have advocated for the reversal of Roe versus Wade all my political career. The leak from someone within the court is reprehensible and should lead to an investigation. But I do hope the court returns authority to the states. Yes. Yep. So there you go from Arkansas. California. It says, our daughters, sisters, mothers, and grandmothers will not be silenced. The world is about to hear their fury, said California Governor Gavin Newsom, a Democrat. California will not sit back. We are going to fight like hell. And yes, if there's one thing I know about California, if there's one thing I know, well, at least about the Bay Area, I'm definitely expecting for there to be a lot of organization behind this. So Colorado, we see, in light of the reported decision of the Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade, Colorado remains a state where freedom is respected and where any person has the ability to live, work, thrive, and raise a family on their own terms. He added, while states like Texas, Florida, and Arizona are engaging in the unwelcome intrusion of government into deeply personal and religious decisions, Colorado remains a refugee where any person has the ability to live, work, thrive, and raise a family on their own terms. So again, they are obviously pro-choice, pro-abortion, as they would put it. Connecticut says, our state continues to take the steps necessary to protect and expand reproductive rights, said Democratic Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont. I hope I didn't butcher that. It says, tonight, and I say it louder and with more resolve than ever before, we will do everything in our power to defend abortion rights in Connecticut. So they're going to defend it. Illinois, it says, hell no, in Illinois, we trust women. We cannot let their most profound and personal rights be violated. So they obviously pro-choice. Maine, it says, I want to be very clear. Unlike an apparent majority of the Supreme Court, I do not consider the rights of women to be dispensable. As long as I'm governor, I will fight with everything I have to protect reproductive rights and to preserve access to reproductive health care. Now we see Michigan. Michigan here says, our work is more important than ever. I'll fight like hell to protect abortion access in Michigan. So again, pro-choice. Now Minnesota, here it says, not on my watch. Not on my watch. A Democrat. It says, in Nevada, we're committed to protecting reproductive rights. I've signed legislation affirming this right and expanding access to health care. And as long as I'm governor, I'll continue to do so. And I mean, it goes on, it goes on. So you guys kind of get the picture. I will link to the source if you guys want to check out all the responses from the different governors. But like you can see, It's stirring up. It is stirring up some conversation. Shout out to Raw with the 5 on the super chat. Much appreciated. Guys, if you're on here, get those likes up. Get those likes up, show support to the show. Hit the super chat. I'll be sure to acknowledge our super chats. Also, you can find me on Cash App or Venmo Shay. And Raw reads, the divestors are pissed they won't be able to murder their pre-born sons. There's definitely a shock factor that I've seen kind of reverberate throughout women all across the board, just throughout the different spaces. So you are certainly seeing that. Okay, so now I want to turn your attention just real quick to kind of give you guys a sense of how divided, or just where people really stand, I think, nationwide on this issue. So it was, I think, Gallup Polls. They did, let's see if I can pull this up. Okay, so they did a, oops, wrong thing, wrong thing. Let me pull this up here. Yeah, see, I've just seen a lot of religious communities, the miseducation about sex, where people end up pregnant because women weren't taught to be. Yeah, no, this is pretty complicated. This is a pretty complicated subject for sure. But like I said, let me get into this one more time before I kind of break down what I think is what we're actually going to see. So here's Gallup Polls. They did this a little less than a year ago, but I think it's still relevant. From my understanding, this is the most recent. Here it says record high 47% in U.S. think abortion is morally acceptable. That's pretty crazy. That's pretty crazy. I generally do not agree with abortion. I do not agree with I just don't agree with on the unborn children being able to advocate for themselves. I do understand it's women's rights, and I do understand it's, women's bodies, but I'm like, well, who's there to advocate for the child? So I think, generally speaking, I do not morally agree with it. Now, that's different. Morally is different than, okay, what are the rights that you have? What are the rights that you have under free nation? That's a whole different conversation. But as far as me as a woman, I would personally, I don't think it's right. I don't think it's right, in except for in maybe really, really rare instances, right? Rare instances where it's like, God forbid, a young girl is abused, right, and she ends up getting pregnant, or God forbid, a girl is, like I'm talking those very, very, very extremist instances. Also, for my I also just total side note, for the Christian or the biblical fundamentalists, which this is kind of what I've seen. I've seen a lot of, I guess, what do they call it? Like the far right evangelicals, if you will, really kind of push this or share this as, hey, this is a win for God. This is a win for the church. This is a win for God. And as somebody myself who is a Christ follower, I think, like I understand where they're coming from as far as a moral standpoint of being like, yeah, of course, if you honor God, right, or if you believe in that, you generally think that life is good, life is blessed, that you should, like, there's never a reason for you to get rid of a baby. So I've seen that oftentimes, and I've a lot of times seen this as like, oh, this is a biblical, this is a godly choice. And some people point to the Bible. But what oftentimes is not brought up in that conversation is that there's a passage in the Bible itself that actually does actually excuse abortion. It's, I think, in Numbers 5, where it's under the rare case of a woman who is potentially caught in adultery, and essentially she goes to these different practices, traditional practices, to essentially abort, to figure out, one, if the baby she has is illegitimate, and then to abort it if so. So that is actually something you see in the Bible. Like, you literally see that in the Bible. Now, of course, it's not like it is not a condoned practice in all instances, but there are very, very rare cases. So it's interesting to me when I hear Bible fundamentalists kind of use the Bible to say, oh, this is God's choice, or, and not really talk about it from the fullness of what we actually see in the passage. But anyways, that's a side note. I want to bring this up. I want to bring that up because that, like I said, that's something that I've seen, and I'm like, I just found that out myself, and I was like, that's, it's I think it is numbers, it's Numbers 5, where it's literally, it's this whole chapter where you bring a woman before the priest, and it's kind of like this whole test, and she's like, yeah, if this woman was caught in adultery and she was impregnated by this man who was not her husband, she will go through this procedure, and that procedure will cause her to lose a kid. So it's a very troubling passage. It's a very troubling passage, but like, all in all, I understand morally and religiously, like I totally understand where this is coming from, because like I said, I personally do not agree with it, but I just wonder why that passage is never really brought up within full context. But okay, let me move on to this one. Okay, so it says record. So it says record high 47% in the U.S. think abortion is morally acceptable. Here it says, okay, 47% think abortion is morally acceptable. 46% think it is morally wrong. Americans still split between pro-choice and pro-life. It says 48% want abortion legal with limits, 32% completely legal, and then 19% illegal. That is a very small 19%. Here you can look at the actual, look at the charts here. So it says Americans' views of abortion as morally acceptable hits new high. So again, you kind of look at it, it shows you morally acceptable. That is a high 47%. That's pretty high. It's almost half. So it's like we are almost split half and half in this nation as far as like what is acceptable versus what is not, or if it's morally acceptable or not. Here we see Partisans' view of abortion as morally acceptable. Now this is 2021. Here's the latest we have. Democrats 64% as morally acceptable, Independent 51%, so about half, and then Republicans only 26% see it as morally acceptable. Then we go here, American self-identification on abortion. So we see pro-choice, again, that's about 49%, pro-life, that's 47%. I think I got those ones mixed up, pro-choice, pro-life, but yeah. Yeah, okay, and then we move down over here. So it just kind of breaks it down. Now, let me see if I can find Americans. Now, here it says Americans' view on abortion legality. So here we see 48% think it should be legal only under circumstances. So that's pretty much, I guess, the majority of that entire group. 48% think it should be legal only under certain circumstances. I think this percentage, 32% think it's legal under any circumstance. And then here's a dotted line. It says illegal in all circumstances. Again, that is a 19%. So again, they kind of recap that at the top. 48% think that it should be legal only under certain circumstances, which was the majority. And again, that's pretty much what Roe versus Wade essentially was. Green here, it says legal under any circumstance, 32%, and then blue, illegal in all circumstances. So again, this kind of gives you a sense of just how split and the different views that we have on this choice. As you will see, there is not really a strong, overwhelming majority in any of this stuff. It's very much divided, and I think this is why right now you see it's trending because, like I said, this is something women's rights. This has been essentially upheld for the last over 50 years. So this is a big blow to those who are very much pro-choice. This is a big blow if it does end up actually happening. But so here's what I think that we can expect if this does go forward. What I think we can expect is that more women are going to galvanize and vote. I think those who they're not really big voters. They've not really been that involved politically. They just kind of take the back seat. You're going to see women come out, I think, in record numbers. You're going to see them come up and vote and fight tooth and nail. With the exception of those, I think, who are maybe more conservative in values or maybe have strong, deep religious beliefs. Apart from that, though, I think you're going to see a very strong minority of them galvanize and try to push back. You're going to see that. As I mentioned before, there's about 20 states already that if this goes forward, who are going to completely ban it, at least 20. And that accounts for about 80 million women who live in those states. So again, you're going to see women fighting back. They're not going to just take this laying down if they feel like their values and their beliefs or their rights are being taken from them. They're not going to just take this laying down. What I also think that this is going to mean is a boost for the Democrats, because whether you identify as a Democrat or not, the polls have not really been in their favor as of recent, just due to the recent administration. But I think this issue alone will cause, a boost in the Democrats, largely because you're going to start to see more women, in my opinion, largely because I think you're going to start to see more women vote and get involved, and women tend to vote more liberally. So I do think you're going to see a boost in the Democratic support for no other reason than this issue. And you're going to see that you're already seeing the Democrats push that. You're already seeing them push, get people who are pro-choice, elect officials who are pro-choice. You're already seeing that. And then now, as far as the behavior, I think you are going to see a mixture. You're going to see a mixture. At the end of the day, women are still going to do, I think, what they want to do. I don't think all of a sudden you're going to have this large shift because of abortion. You're going to have this large shift of women being like, you know what, maybe we should practice sexual morality. Maybe we shouldn't really be getting involved in all the sex anyways. Maybe we should really be more conscientious of our bodies. And no, that's not going to happen. Most women are still going to want to practice the same behaviors they were doing before. We're still going to see the same kind of 3 or 4 behavior being promoted in media and Instagram and social media. We're still going to see that. I think as a result, you're going to have more, you may have more back alley, abortions, kind of like they were doing it back in the day. You're going to see more of that. I think you're going to see people, you're going to see people who are going, maybe traveling, having to travel farther to kind of get abortions if they need to get it done. You may even see a few women hopping the border. But I don't think what you're going to really see is a big push for women to stop having free sex. I don't think you're going to see that. I mean, maybe, I think personally, some may start to be more cautious, but I think by and large, women I don't think are going to want to see that, as they're not going to want their rights taken away as they see it. And they're not going to want to stop doing what they're doing. So I think instead of actually complying, they're just going to try to find other ways to get around it. And that could be dangerous. That actually could be dangerous if women still want to, at the end of the day, get abortions. It's not legal and they have to find other ways to do it. That could cause a problem. That could cause a problem, absolutely. So, and then let me see. I think a few other things. Let me see, I wrote down. Another thing I wanted to bring up is that this, I think, poses the issue of class, right? Because what Roe versus Wade, what it's not saying is that there's no abortions allowed anywhere in this country. It's not saying that. It's not completely banning it all across the country. It's giving it really, turning the rights really over to the states, and then the states are going to be able to decide. Now, like I mentioned, we know out the gate, there's going to be at least 20, if not more, who are going to completely ban it. Or at the very least put severe restrictions on it. But there's also going to be the states who upheld it. You saw it in the report that I read a few minutes ago. So women technically will still have access to it. But here's the thing. If you are let's say you are a poor woman, or you're a woman in a low income kind of situation, you don't make a lot of money. You're in the rural South, or you are the inner city, just somewhere you don't have a lot of money, you don't have a lot of resources, you get knocked up and it's illegal, and you have to travel interstate or travel to another state in order to have an abortion. That's money and that's resources. And essentially, low income women in the at the poverty line or in the poverty line who get pregnant likely aren't going to have the resources to travel abroad or to travel to another state in order to do that. That could cost a pretty penny. And so I think they're going to be the most impacted. I honestly think lower income women, Black women in particular, because we get the most abortions. Unfortunately, we do. Which is why, to me, I think it's incredibly hypocritical when we, promote propaganda about Black femicide and Black women being killed every 5-6 hours, which I've already explained why that's false. We talk about that, and we don't ever talk about abortions. We don't even ever talk about the way that we ourselves are harming the babies in our body. We don't talk about that. But anyways, another topic. Either way, we're going to be the most impacted. Black women, I think, are going to be the most impacted, largely because we are the ones who are the most likely to do it. And then many of us are at, if not below, the poverty line. And so those women who are, at the poverty line, their finances are tight, finances are stretched, and God forbid they get pregnant. Y'all already know gas is super high right now. So it's just like, man, okay, I can't get nothing here, but gotta drive a state or two to get there. Gas is crazy high. Okay, flights are high. And so again, those kind of women without the resources to fly or to drive somewhere or to travel somewhere to get it taken care of, they're going to be the most impacted. That is going to be women who do not have the means. What might that mean? That might mean you start to have more kids from women who cannot afford it. More kids from women who cannot afford it. And what will that mean for the Black community? How will that impact the Black community? And so that's what I think that we're going to see. Like I said, we're going to see women galvanize. We're going to see, I think, women and the Democrats really, really fight and use this as an opportunity, to try to improve their ratings for the next election. And you're going to see women try to fight to make sure that this doesn't happen. I think that's what you're going to do. But at the end of the day, if it does, rather than there being a strong moral shift or in the shift of the behavior of women in general, I think they're going to continue to do the same thing mostly, but then suffer the consequences at the end of the day. Like I said, I think women are still going to try to have free sex and encourage doing so. I mean, there might be more talks about, okay, contraceptions, if that's even allowed in certain areas. Might be more talks of that. But I think that's what you're going to see. You're going to see the same behavior. And you're going to see women, I think, try to find ways to get around it, but that's going to cause another set of issues. It's going to cause another set of issues. So, y'all, those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts, guys. If you're on here, get those likes up. Get those likes up. Yes, and I have heard, if this goes through, that this could set the precedence for overturning many other changes that have made. I saw some LGBTQ activists saying that this is pointing to a danger for gay marriages and different rights that have been passed for the LGBTQ community. I've seen that. I've heard people talk about Loving versus Virginia, although I don't know if that's going to happen, because I think some of the justices, actually a few of them, are in interracial marriages. So I don't know that would happen. But nonetheless, if this does happen, this could set the precedence for a lot of interesting things. And I think to me, that is what's going to be interesting to see. But at the end of the day, like I said, if this goes through, I do think Black women are going to be the most impacted. They really are. And I don't necessarily know that it's going to be, I don't know that's going to be a good thing. I don't know that it's going to be a good thing. So we'll see. Like I said, this is a very complex scenario, just because there's so many different factors and so many different feelings behind it. Like I said, I morally do not agree with abortion. I would always encourage women, first of all, to marry before they carry. I don't think a woman should be going out and having free sex, period. I am a firm believer of celibacy and abstinence. Like, I'm a firm believer of that. But I also do not believe in enforcing morality on another person, if that makes sense. I think people have to come to those conclusions on their own terms. So while I practice that, and I will preach that, and I will encourage women that I know and deal with to do that, I know most women will not do that. Most women will not. So I don't feel personally impacted by this because of the way that I live my life and because of the things that I believe. But many women are. And I think it's going to be interesting to see the way that this pans out. And if this really does end up healing the nation, as I've heard, right? Or if this does really end up changing things for the positive, or if this is going to perhaps open up an area for other issues. We'll see. We will see. So this is that's what I got, guys. Yeah, see, I don't think think this is going to make women have children, especially. Yeah. So guys, so we'll see. We'll see. That's kind of what I got. Let me guys know if you're on here. First of all, hit those likes up. I think what I'm gonna do now, first of all, yeah, okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna do, guys, I shared my position, or shared my thoughts on it. If you guys are just kind of getting in there. I'd like to hear from you guys. So first of all, hit those like buttons. And if you would like to share your opinion, what I'm going to need you guys to do is show some support, show some love, hit the Cash App, or show some love on your chat. Then what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to take a quick little 3-minute break. While we are doing that, if you guys want to call in and have a portion where you can call in and share your thoughts, or maybe, or maybe even bring up something that I haven't considered. Because like I said, I do not pretend to be the expert on this. I don't pretend to have it all right. I simply shared my opinion, but I'm open to be enlightened to something else, or to be told something I didn't consider. So again, guys, if you do want to have a time to share your thoughts, let me see. Oops. What's going on? Sorry, guys, I'm having some technical difficulties here. What's going on? Okay, guys, give me a second. Oops. Guys, give me 1 second. Technical difficulties. Sorry about that. What happened? That was so weird. That was totally... Okay, guys, bear with me. Bear with me, guys. I'll be up in just a moment. It's so weird. I totally had that. Okay, guys, so while I'm waiting for things to load, if you guys are just coming on here, I just briefly went over some of the different reports about what happened with Roe versus Wade. As you guys know, there were sources that are saying that it's going to be overturned, which is essentially going to change a precedent that's been established for like the last 50 years. So we're seeing a lot of strong feelings behind this. I went over my positions, right? While I think at the end of the day, Black women are going to be the most impacted by this, largely because we are the ones who abort our kids the most, unfortunately. And then also because many Black women are at the poverty line, or at the very least are struggling financially, and women who do not have the resources to travel if they need to go to a place where they need to get aborted, provided their state doesn't allow them to do it, they're going to be the most impacted. They're going to be the most impacted. So I think this really becomes an issue of class at the end of the day. Like I said, if the woman does find herself in a position where she gets pregnant, she doesn't want the baby, can't afford the baby, yada, 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 yada. And then she gets knocked up. And if, like I said, if she's in a state where they don't allow it, she has to figure out a way to go somewhere to do it. And if she's already struggling financially, that just might not be an option. So that's what I was kind of going over. As I mentioned before, I'm going to go on a quick, I guess, 3-minute break. If you guys want to talk, if you guys want to share your perspective, have a few minutes to call in, then let me know. Be sure to send in some support, show some love, and we'll get going. Oops. Y'all, these technical... looks like you can hear me. Okay, you can hear me now. Got some love from Kevin C. Appreciate it. I said, hey Shay, this is a woman's issue, but I'm looking forward to hearing women's perspective on this new development on Roe versus Wade. Shout out to Miss Delta Guy. Hey, it's good to see you. I think I saw you yesterday on the Dennis Sperling show. Said, hi Shay, I'm personally pro-life. The Supreme Court is putting it back in the hands of the state. As Black people, we should be pro-life. Absolutely. That's how, I mean, that's, like I said, I do not support, I don't support abortion. I don't think it's good. I do understand that I think in maybe rare instances or rare circumstances that it might be at the very least valid, but I think those scenarios are few. Again, speaking to abuse or a situation where a woman may be violated or something like that may happen, and God forbid she gets pregnant, things like that. Or maybe if, a woman is with a baby and there were severe complications with the child, kind of like that crazy scenario that we saw where a woman was basically poisoned by her boyfriend, and she ended up having to get rid of the kid because it had so many medical issues. So I understand. I think there are in rare cases that I think that it should be okay, or at the very least it should be a consideration, but I don't think that should be the majority. I do not. But like I said, I wanted to see if you guys were interested. So first of all, I do appreciate the support and I do appreciate the love. So let's see. Shout out to Jake Neely for becoming a new member. Much appreciated. Oops. Yeah, I see it's never valid as a Christian. Yeah, I slightly disagree with that, just simply because of the scripture that I mentioned, where it does speak to that. Like if that wasn't there, if that scripture that entire passage was not there, where it was literally an instruction, check it out in Numbers and maybe read through it and let me know what you think. But I'm like, I think if it wasn't for that, then I would have been like, yeah, I think from a religious standpoint, moral standpoint, it's bad. But I'm like, I saw that and I'm like, oh, that kind of caused me to rethink how it's seen. But I think a woman just going and having sex, or she gets knocked up, or she's not ready, it's like, no, I don't support that. I'm thinking, like I said, in instances of a woman being taken advantage of, God forbid, it's like, incest or something crazy like that. Like a young girl, this has happened where young girls are violated. They're 9 and they're 10 and they're pregnant, and you can have a kid, and you can't. You know what I mean? You have a kid at 9 or 10, that can cause some physical repercussions. So again, I'm thinking to make allowances for those kinds of scenarios, but I said I could be wrong. So anyways, God, I have a few minutes. Thank you for those of you who were generous to show support. Again, if you would like to, feel free to do so. Let me. Yeah, so I have a few minutes if any of you guys want to call in and share your perspective. Like I said, I shared mine. But I'm happy to be wrong, or happy to hear something that I haven't considered before. But I have a few moments. Okay. If not, guys, we can cut it off too. No pressure. I just know this is such a heated topic, so I wanted to give some of you guys a chance to speak on it in the event. Yeah, I see. At the root of this is the declining birth rate of the white population. I said you should definitely go read it again. It's not talking about abortion. Yeah, I can read through it again. When I read it not too long ago, and it looked like it was speaking about a woman who had infidelity, and essentially God was like, this is not. This something that was created from that union is impure. And that's why not only would the bitter water cause her to miscarriage, right? Essentially, it would cause the baby to abort. It would also curse her womb. That's how I understood the passage. But I can go ahead and reread it. But that was something to me that it was a little bit The reason I say it was challenging is because I guess within some of the religious circles, I hadn't really seen that, discussed so much, and so I kind of found that really surprising when I noticed that. Okay. Oh, again, shout out to MS Delta with the 20, with the 20 on the super chat. Much appreciated. Okay, looks like I got a few callers here. Okay. Hey, how's it going?
Very well, thank you.
So what you got in the topic?
On the topic, it seems to me that we need to make sure we can provide our young ladies a opportunity to not have too much sex, if that makes sense. It seems like what the subject here is unplanned sex, too much unresponsible sex.
Yeah,
that's what it's looking like, and it's looking like the argument is, can we have uneducated, dirty sex, and can we do that? That seems to be the argument to me. And so I think that we need to provide protection for our young women, for our women, so that there is no way, that we can, so we don't have to worry about this,
So you think that by doing this, women are just going to stop having sex?
No, I don't think that. I think the argument here that's on the table is, can we have free, reckless sex? I think that's the argument that's on the table.
Okay.
And I think that we as men need to step up and provide and protect our women at a higher level. So this way, to do our part,
Yeah.
And on the women's part, just hold it, don't let it go,
No, I hear you. Like I said, I don't support that. I will never support that. I think, again, generally speaking, I think abortion morally is wrong. I don't support it. I don't support a woman going out and having free sex and just doing it, and then, oops, she gets pregnant. Okay, I can just get aborted. No big deal. Like, I think that's incredibly reckless. I think that's really dangerous. I think that psychologically, I just think it can cause so many different problems. Again, I think of, except for those small cases where it might be valid. I think in those cases, I'm like, I don't look at this personally as a woman. I don't look at this and feel, oh, this is against my rights, because morally, I don't really agree with it. But I understand, I guess where I see it getting really complicated is because, while, I, for maybe religious reasons, will prefer not to do it, or would never really encourage someone else to do it. I guess I've heard some of the arguments say, like, hey, we have a court right now, justices that they're leaning in one direction that not necessarily the majority of the American population agrees is right. Like, when I looked at the poll, we saw it was like 48. I think it was like 48%. The majority, essentially, compared to the other ones, thought that it was at the very least, it was morally right under certain instances. So it's like, if that is the majority have that opinion, and then the justices they're leaning in a scenario that's not necessarily reflective of majority, are they now essentially forcing their religious views on it? Those are different, I guess. Those are different takes that I saw on it. So I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. Let's have a few other people on here I think I want to add. Let's see. We got Kevin Z. What's going on, Kevin Z?
Hey, how you doing?
What's going on, Shay? What's going on, Kevin? What's going on, other guests?
And that's Doja coming through. Much appreciated. I see we all need to step up as men and women, bring back the shotgun wedding. Listen, and if it was Shay for president, I would advocate for more marriages, right? Marry before you carry, bring back morals, stuff like that, and like, this wouldn't be an issue. But this is not Shay for president, and I understand that most women do not have my point of view. I see don't throw away your so I see that don't throw away your miracle. So obviously someone who's very much in agreement of child should be here, a child, and for every person who says, hey, you know, this is my choice, right? This is my choice. It's like, God, what if our mothers would have said it about us, right? What if we were born at a time that wasn't necessarily convenient, and they're like, oh, well, I guess it's my choice to get rid of it. We wouldn't be here. You know, so yeah.
I'm gonna let Kevin C go first because I'm gonna come in with some really dark shit. So Kevin C, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Hey, how you doing? You know, I was actually interested in hearing what women would have to say about this. Are any women come up?
Well, I'm the only one, to my understanding, that is. Yeah, because I can't. If you go on female, most women see this as a step backwards. Most women that I've seen see this as a step backwards. Like I said, I don't take that position. One, because even when I was single, I wasn't going around sleeping with different guys like that. I was abstinent by choice. Like I said, I stick very closely to my religious views, if you will. So it was not really an issue for me because I just wasn't engaging in the kind of behavior that would cause that to be an issue. But most women platforms that I've seen who are very much modern women, very much boss babe, you know, hot girl summer, travel vacation, they're the ones who are affected. Honestly, they're the ones that I think they feel shaken, because now what this at the end of the day is going to mean is that there's going to be consequences with their sexual activity, essentially.
Yeah, because
clear consequences for it.
Yeah, because termination is really like the last stop once you get past everything else. You know
and I've seen some. I think it was Texas who was like they banned after 6 weeks, and there was like after 15 weeks, things like that. And so again, I think some of this could just be an overreaction, because again, at the end of the day, if a woman really does want to get an abortion in the U.S., she still can do it. It may just be harder. It may just cost more. Yeah, and I think that's what's making it uncomfortable. I wish, you know, and I just wonder. It's like, why are we even at the point to where creating a culture where there's free sex, essentially casual sex without any consequences? Why do we even necessarily need to create that environment at the expense of kids? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, this maybe brings up moral questions, but then that's where it can get complicated with the government. Like, is the government responsible for regulating morality? And I think that is the push that you see, because I'm like, this is not a theocracy. This is supposed to be a democracy. So,
well, you know, 60, 70 years ago, this wasn't even a question or a topic of discussion. Right, exactly. And this didn't even come into play until you get to, you know, the original decision in I want to say it's 1972 or something like that. I know it was in the 70s, early 70s.
It was passed in, I think, 73.
Okay, Roger. Just understand, at the root of all of this is the birth rate. All right, this has nothing to do. I mean, yeah, it's going to be Black people are going to be affected, but you know, that's not the concern when they're talking about this as it relates to the United States government. That is we're not even on their mind when they're thinking about this. So this is going to affect us differently in the sense that this is actually directed towards, you know, the white population having more kids. That's what this is about. So if you take this option away, then it forces, you know, the women who actually otherwise would be less inclined, then they actually have to go through the process, and you know, or they have to plan it out. There's a lot more things that have to do and take into consideration. So that's what this really is about at the root of all of this. And then when you start talking about, go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna say, yeah, I saw a few other people say that too, where it's just like, we're getting caught up in the cultural stuff. At the end of the day, this is just their way of trying to regulate what they see as a decline among the majority population in America, which is white America.
We're a side issue, as a matter of fact. You I don't know if you heard about this, but Jeff Bezos' ex-wife actually donated millions of dollars to Planned Parenthood, specifically
that's not surprising. That's not. Have you heard of Alpha? I never heard of Alpha.
Yeah, so the concern is not to increase more Black babies. That's not what they're looking for. They're trying to actually, decrease the number of Black children born. So they're actually encouraging that.
Right. They're encouraging.
Yeah,
You're right.
on
They
the-
are encouraging Black America, Black women to. I mean, and who knows? I mean, this could have been why the whole, the Cynthia G, the abort black male babies, why it hasn't really caused any legal issues, because maybe that's an agenda for certain people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 'cause
I think,
people are monitoring that, and it's out there. But you know what though? You know what's going to happen? People are going to start exercising other options. They're going to go back to the, what they used to refer to as the back alley termination.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what's going to happen.
You're going to have people going overseas. You're going to have people, doing other things, and then some states are going to actually argue to the point where they implement the states, where it becomes a states' rights issue. Like, hey, I run it here in my state, so you might have to cross state lines, because that's always an out for when you at the state level. People love bringing up the 10th Amendment to the Constitution when it serves them, and this is one of those issues where it's definitely going to serve. Depending on how conservative or how what you call it, progressive the state is. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Allow me to interject real quick. I think this is a referendum on all the slackness and loose behavior of American women, particularly Black women. They get to go about and do all this reckless, wild, irresponsible sex without bearing any form of consequences. I'm glad that there's a possibility of this decision being overturned. I don't want to pay for a woman's irresponsibility. You know what happens when a man doesn't meet his responsibility in child support? His driver's license gets taken away and he goes to jail. So Black women and women in general need to be held to some standard and have some form of consequences. This loose behavior has to stop. We need to bring back morality.
It's not about the
we need to bring back morality and discipline in America, because if you look in the Black community, it's like bizarre land. You can't tell up from down, you can't tell wrong from right. It's a chaos here.
Yeah, and I understand that, but remember,
I got something to say on that too.
Remember when this is being planned out, and we're actually not even considered as part of the picture
at all.
So that being said, there needs to be some morality to that and a whole bunch of other things and everything else. That's why I'm actually very interested in how women feel about this, because men understand we look at this from a different perspective. Because, when we think about childbirth and as it relates to us, if we get a woman pregnant, then we understand all the responsibilities that come with that. Yeah. So I'm always interested in how women feel about this, because women will tell you, well, you know what? You're not a woman. This is not your issue. You shouldn't even be talking about it. So that's how we look at it. We look at just how I forget your name, sir, but how he was explaining it. But I also try to be empathetic and understanding in a way that looks at it from a woman's perspective, because I don't give birth.
Real quick.
Okay, guys, real quick, because I wanna let you guys. I know Mr. Z have something to say. Hey, Chantel, how's it going? Call in if you want to, because I know they want some more women's.
Definitely want to hear what women.
Hey, Chantel.
So I've shared my little 2 cents on here. I also want to be sure, real quick, that I acknowledge the super chats. I see. Let's not exaggerate. More women will just get on birth control.
Yep.
Well, and here's the thing too, because I wonder, in some of those states, is there a possibility of even banning birth control? I don't know.
Now that's a good question.
I'm wondering about that, because that would make it really complicated if that was the case. There's a few more. Okay, I'm almost done. There's a few more. I see Better You. It says, I'm just joining, but really want to hear your perspective. Thank you, Better You. Much appreciated. Okay, and then I also see, Dane C. It says, Shay, I know you don't agree with abortion, but what about in case an incest, grape, life of the mother? Yeah, okay, so again, that's what I was saying was my position. I generally do not agree with abortion. I do not. I think I would fall within the 48th percentile, which is that under certain circumstances, it will be considered valid, i.e. in the case of, like I said, a woman being, God forbid, raped, right? A young girl being raped, she gets pregnant 9, 10, that happens. If she could give birth, that could actually impede her life. That could be life-threatening. So in cases like that, where it's like really severe, it could be life-threatening if the girl does have the child. or the child itself maybe experienced a ton of trauma, and essentially in the case of it can be medical concerns or there is violence involved. That's where I feel like, okay, in that position, it might be valid if, again, a person's life could be ended or something like that. But apart from that, like a woman just going and being able to have, being incentivized to have free sex, I personally do not agree with that. I don't think that that's helpful at all. I don't think that that's helpful at all. But at the same time, I understand why it's becoming such an uproar, because I recognize that I tend to be the minority in that, with that opinion. I tend to be the minority. So, but that's, like I said, if it was Shay for president and I could just pass whatever laws and be a dictator, I think in most instances I would ban it. If it was just me. Like I said, we live in a democracy where this is not a theocracy. This is not, my religion over yours and my beliefs over yours. It's supposed to be a place that's 50-50. But again, it gets complicated when it's like, who's advocating for the kid? Who's advocating for the unborn kid? And I think that's why, in most instances, I don't think it should be so easy to end that. I hope I'm clear about that.
Somebody's background.
Can I respond to that?
Okay.
Real quick. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. And so, so I think I got through all those super chats. Also, Chantel, if you want to come in, or just ladies in general, feel free to call in, because I think they want some more. I don't want to speak for all the women because I'm the minority. So, okay. So, Mr. Z, you can.
Yeah, let me because I want to go because I might have to drop off in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. Real quick. So Kevin C is 100% right. I understand where the brother was coming from. This has nothing to do with morality whatsoever. Okay. So so this has nothing to do with morality whatsoever. This is about numbers, right? Replacement numbers. The birth rate in America is at 1.7 and some change. You need 2.1 to maintain the population. Young people are having more abortions, yes, but they're having less sex. They're having less children. The birth rate is going down across the board. Teenage birth rate, young adult birth rate. The birth rate is going down across the board. The sex rate under the age of under the age of 35 and 30 is going down. So young people, I know we hear about the reckless sex and the hot girl summer and all that other stuff. And it's not that that's not happening, but that is a select few of the population that's having sex with like everybody in the other gender, right? Which is having sex with everybody. It's not what it used to be 20 and 30 years ago. I think we get stuck in that rhetoric. It's not really happening like that anymore. And so, essentially what this is white men telling white women, listen here, B, you got to have my children. We got a planet to run. We got to go conquer some stuff. The Chinese moved from 1-child policy to 3-child policy. Me and Kevin spoke about that last week. So like, this is like a global thing where, especially in Western countries, you're going to see this become more and more of a thing because quite frankly, it's interesting when people put something forward and they don't have the foresight to understand how this could come back and bite them in the ass, right? So you told people that it's all about the money, screw everything else. You pretty much have to be super established before you have children, before you get married. That's what millennials and Gen Z were taught. And so that now that they're actually practicing it, you see these politicians in panic mode, especially politicians on the right. They're in panic mode because more and more of their daughters aren't getting married and having children, period, right? The average marriage age, I think, for women in general in America is 27.8, which is pretty much 28 years old, right? But remember, that's the average. So that means there's a whole lot of women that's creeping past 35, right? Never been married, don't have no children.
Yeah, that's true.
You see what I'm saying? So like, that's the real issue. I get where the brothers are coming from and the sisters are coming from with morality. This has nothing to do with morality. This is Mitch McConnell and the conservatives moving judges around for the past better part since Trump, putting as many federal judges as humanly possible so that they could get this done, right? And this has been the plan since the 1970s, since Roe versus Wade passed. They finally got it together. They're gonna make this move. If it passes, I promise y'all, it's not gonna seriously force women in general, even black women who can't afford it, to increase their birth rate. I really think people underestimate what world we're living in now, right? This is not the 1950s or 60s or 70s anymore. A lot of these people are already used to only having one kid, no kids, maybe 2 kids. You're not going to force them to have more children. Like we already said, they'll just have the back alley abortions, or, we'll still use contraceptive. If there's birth control, they'll get on that. you're not forcing these women to have children. I'm sorry, white conservatives and some of our brothers on the right and our sisters on the right, you're not forcing these people to have those babies. I'm sorry, especially if they try to have nice things. It's definitely not happening, you know. And like Shay said, the more class they have, the better they're trying to elevate in their life, the less children they're more likely to have, which is funny because they're the ones who could afford to have more children. And I'll pause right there.
So real quick, shout out to MS Delta guys coming through today. Much appreciated. It says, how can we claim to be a moral and right society if we have allowed millions of babies to be removed? That is a whole nother conversation about how moral and righteous this society is. Do not even get me started. So I appreciate the love and support. Okay. Hey, Chantel.
Hey,
you got Chantel on the line.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I can't stay long. I'm actually getting ready for my live stream, but this is just an interesting conversation. Hey, everyone on the panel.
Hey, so what you got? I know they want to hear from another woman. So
shout out to Kevin C. Hey, Kevin. I know you're familiar with the foster care system. I am too. I worked in the industry for a minute. And it's funny enough, whenever we have these conversations, we tend to avoid that side of the foster care system because you can't force someone to have a child, right? That's I'm always on the fence with this one. If we're going to take away our abortion rights and say, okay, force yourself to have your child. If you don't want to be a mom, you're not going to be a mom. More than likely, that child might end up in the system. The system is not getting funded. Pardon me?
No. Wait. I just wanted to make sure. So you were saying you worked in the foster care system.
Yeah, I worked in the foster care system for a while and witnessed just how underfunded it has been for years. So when we have I'm not necessarily for abortion, nor am I against it because of the situation you mentioned, you know, if it's rape or something like that. But we can't deny that a lot of these women are using abortions as contraceptive, as birth control, right?
Right.
But if we're going to take away their right to abortion and we're going to encourage them to have these kids, even though they don't want to be moms, are we going to put things in places for if these kids end up in foster care? And I think that's the part of the conversation we tend to avoid whenever we discuss this. Like no one, and Kevin, I'm pretty sure you understand what I'm trying to say. Like no one acknowledges what happens to a child that comes in the world.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy. I was shifted around about 6 times.
Oh wow!
Like being forced. Actually,
the woman that the church that I attended for some time, she was also foster care, and she got adopted when she was like I think 3 or 4, like she was pretty young. But she said the trauma that she experienced in the first couple of years of her life resonate with her even up to this day. She's pastor's wife, you know, she goes to therapy and deals with it. Mm-hmm.
I've had clients who's been in the system until age 2 to 18. Like, you know, like that's all they knew.
Wow, that's crazy.
Their mom didn't want to have kids, but, you know, they didn't obviously abort the child. So they're like, oh, let me just give birth and then put it in the system. And I think it's doing more harm. So my point is that's just a side of the conversation that we tend to avoid whenever we say pro-life. That's a part of the conversation we tend to avoid, not realizing that it's a big part of it.
How about, because I actually saw some comments in there about newborns. I think I saw a comment in there from Family Values about newborns having no problem getting adopted. I don't know if you've noticed that there's a difference between age. Like if a baby is like literally fresh out the womb versus they're a couple of years in, that they tend to have an easier time getting placed. Not sure if you have anything to add on that.
They have an easier time being adopted, but it's still not guaranteed. Like it's a small percentage of adoption. Okay. And usually when a kid comes into the system, it's been with its bio parents for a while. So unless the kid was neglected at birth or it was born with some kind of drugs in their system, they've been with their parents at least up until age 3.
Okay.
You know, we forget, like we don't have history. Like, okay, so personally pro-life, but you know, I've struggled to tell other people what to do with their bodies. But you know, we act like we don't have history about what happens when you try to force women to have children. We saw this in Europe. We saw this in different parts of the world. When you try to, they'll just have the abortion in a back alley, or like Chantel was saying, they'll just give their child up for adoption, and then that child, if they get caught up in the foster care system, then like the likeliness of them just being, you know, that y'all remember the proverbial like young British boy with his hands out, "Sir, can you give me some change?" Like that's what it's gonna be. Like y'all act like that's not a possibility. I get where the brothers and sisters are coming from with the reckless sex thing and morality, but this is not about morality. This is about the U.S. and China competing. This is really what it's about, and this is about America keeping its socioeconomic position on planet Earth. That's what this is about. All the morality stuff is what we're projecting onto this.
Thank you, Chantel.
But if I could just add that, my point is, I just don't think the conversation is as black or white as we've been having it. I think there are other things that we can explore to prevent. So I'm not neither. I'm not for abortion nor against. I mean, I'm just like, you know, it's a case by case situation as we touched on earlier. But I think we can't just say, oh, against abortion or for abortion without taking everything else into consideration.
No, I hear you, and I hear where you're coming from. I think thank you for calling. I know you have to hop off. I think, you know, around the question of morality, or if you're dealing with the woman having, you know, the reckless sex or all those kind of different things, I think some of this does go back to, okay, home training, right? Like if there's a really big issue of like, hey, women just need to stop doing this, or if we really want to see women not having kids out of wedlock, those are the kinds of things that need to be instilled in women when they're really young, morally, right? Like I think this really goes back to, okay, more of a community, how are you raising them, spiritual values, whatever. But I'm like, just thinking that a woman in her 30s and 40s, or who's been doing things a certain kind of way, is just going to stop because of the rules. No, they are, I think, going to your point, they're going to resort to more dangerous measures to do it. And if we really do want to see girls not do this kind of behavior, we're a lot better off teaching women, I think, the better options. And that is when you start to get more into a moral religious, that's a whole different conversation. But I guess that's just say for me how I would look at it.
Yeah, it's kind of like,
so I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chantal.
I'm sorry. It's kind of like the abstinent conversation, you know, telling kids don't have sex, just look away. That's going to cause them to want to have sex more instead of just explaining why we shouldn't have sex. I'm sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No worries.
No, go ahead.
I see also Miss Delta guy got something that says, in my view, regardless of the right-wing population, foster care, etc., these are all tangential distractions and excuses we Black people use to take care of our own. We don't need to delete our babies. That's what I was saying before. Like what you're talking about is morality and having community values, things like that, which I agree with. And those are the things that need to be taught and instilled, I think, in order for us to see that shift. I think I don't know if like regulating, if this is going to change women's behavior, or if this is just going to make women be more rebellious. I tend to think it's going to make women be more rebellious. I agree with it.
In what direction, though? What do you mean?
Huh?
What direction?
When I say rebel, women are not tomorrow going to wake up and be like, oh wow, it's legal. Okay, I guess I'm not gonna born my kids anymore. I guess I'm gonna start thinking about who I sleep with. It's like, no, there's women out there who I think are still going to want to do what they want to do. They're going to protest. They're going to galvanize. They're going to try to get Democrat. They're going to try to fight against this. So that's, I think that's going to happen. No, I'm not saying that's necessarily right, but I do think that we're going to see some of that.
I do think, though, to your point, I do think it's going to make it harder for a lot of these young girls to just to have sex and use abortion as a birth control, just because I think they're just so nonchalant with it, like, oh, I'll just go get an abortion. So to that point, I think it's a good thing to ban it.
Make it harder. Yeah. We should not incentivizing free, reckless sex, I do not agree with. I don't think there should be an incentive for that at all.
I agree. I just think you put the squeeze on people for decades, and then I think if this passes, we'll see in a decade or two if it was really a morality question or if it was a social and economic question. I don't think we really have the answer fully yet. I think it's a mixture of both. But if this passes, we'll see. And I'm leaning towards social and economic. And I agree with Shay. I do think that the genie is out of the bottle. You told people it's all about the money, and like everybody wants to talk about morality. I get it, but we'll see in a decade or two if this passes if it really was about morality. I lean towards social and economic with some morality, but I think when you tell people and when people notice how expensive house prices are and car prices, even if they can't articulate it like I can, you automatically start making people slow down. And that's why I brought up the sex rate earlier, to say like young people are like, first of all, it's less likely for people to have sex if they're still living at home with their parents. They have less money, especially if the boys and the men have less money. So that, I would argue, that's one of the reasons why I was already going down anyway. Less sex, less children, less homes, less new cars. Yeah. You know, like all of that. And nobody's mentioning that. We're talking about morality without talking about the fact that these young people, especially under the age of 30, are doing less of all the markers of adulthood. They're doing less of all of it, especially your boys, regardless of race, right? So I get where people are coming from, but like I said, give it a decade or two and we'll see what it really is.
So you're saying the people, which is fair, like the people can generally interpret it however they want to interpret it, but you're saying as far as how I guess the judges are seeing it, it's more of an issue of it's a socioeconomic issue, and they're not saying
it's taxes. It's taxes. It's money, right? Like, so we talk about Social Security all the time. What are we saying? We're saying like boomers were the largest population, right? That's still alive. Then we have Xers. Then we have millennials, right? Like, and then there's less Gen Z than millennials, and then there's less Alpha than Gen Z. Like, you don't like demographers see that. Right? Demographers see that, and like they're like, "Oh crap, we got an issue." Houston,
yeah, exactly.
Right? Go ahead.
Real quick, I see in this Delta guy. It says, "Black people stop making excuses. We need black babies. Stop the deleting. Bandit. No excuses." I don't think anyone. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think anyone over here is saying that we need to delete black baby. I'm certainly not advocating for that. I'm
not advocating for that. I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm just giving it something else to think about.
Yeah, because that's the last thing that I would ever. Okay, and then I see here, whether social or morality or economic, regardless, we should not be deleting millions of babies. Yeah, no, I think, like I said, I take moral issue with that. I do. Let me see.
I agree that we should stop. Like, honestly, deleting our kids, especially if we're doing it so nonchalant. However, I think if they had the Black community's best interests at heart, we would have been seeing other things be put in place for our Black kids, for our young babies. So that excuse, I think, is just an excuse. And I agree with, I'm sorry, I can't see your name, the car.
Yeah, Mr. Z.
Yeah,
I just say Z.
That it's not.
Right. No, I hear you. And that's where I was saying, I think, for me, with the exception of very rare cases, abortion should not be synonymous with birth control. No, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be used as birth control. We shouldn't be incentivizing free sex. This is my opinion. I think it's very reckless and it's very dangerous. And
Kevin, before you go, I just want to ask this super hyperbolic question, but I gotta go extreme with it just to kind of paint, the picture. Here's a question for everybody listening. We do this, right? And in 10, 15 years, you look and the birth rate still is dropping. Now what? Right? Like you people start getting married more, or the people that can afford it or whatever, people at least are staying in their long-term relationships, but that birth rate is still going down. Because when young people are polled and asked, why aren't they getting married and having children? They straight up say money. So like, what happens? Yeah, like what happens in 15 years if this passes and that birth rate is still, falling like a rock? That's the question.
Do they do what they do in? I think I've heard this happening in Japan, where they're starting to get immigrants in and trying to bring in other people to try to incentivize. I could be wrong.
Hey, if the world's population is going down, you're going to move people from where to where?
Exactly.
I don't.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shahel. I know you have to head out, so.
Yeah, you're gonna have a situation where people try to rob Peter to pay Paul, but you have countries, especially in Asia, already doing that. All right, and in Europe, the population is already declining. And then our population is already declining. So, you can only move so many pieces around on a chessboard until you run out of pieces.
Exactly.
So to kind of answer Z's question, hey everybody,
what's going on,
happens? Nothing much. I believe that you're going to see more socialist elements come into the economy, and I believe this is largely a socio-economic issue, and you're going to see more, basically more worker empowerment. And as people's wealth and wages increase and they feel more secure and stable to have a family, you're going to have families. I think that's really what the end goal is going to be there.
They literally did a poll. I want to say earlier this year. I can't remember. When I find it, I'm going to post it. You already know I post that in my community chat all the time. And what they showed is the people that were the most, that looked forward to the future the most, were about the top 20 to 25% of young people. So that's under the age of 35. They were the people that were the most, excited about the future and having children and getting married, right? Everybody else under that 20 to 75%. Something, the bottom 75, bottom 80. That's how I'm saying it. So they did not want to get married and have children. Like, I keep on stressing this because I get where people are coming from. Like I said, I'm not for the abortion, especially as a Black person. Yes, Shay, I did also watch the Ma Alpha documentary, the whole thing years ago, right? So I watched it also, so I get it, right? I understand. I know about Margaret Sanger. I know about Planned Parenthood. I know about the eugenics program, all of that, right? With that said, I think until you address the social and economic, this is literally a left argument and a right argument that we're having, right? The right says morality is the issue, and the left says
we'll check it out. But this is way too political. I have something to say right here. Y'all getting too political.
Okay, Jake, please, because let him finish that. I want to make sure that family values have
go right ahead.
Yeah, but no. I get what you're saying, brother, about the political, and that's where I was going. But it's going to devolve into a political conversation regardless, because the question is it a morality situation that we're dealing with, or an economic and social thing? And so the left usually says it's an economic and social thing. The right usually says it's a morality thing. I think both are right, but we're going to find out who's more right, because I think both are right, but you got to give it some time before we see, okay, how do we adjust this and see, okay, the left was more right or the right was more right, so let's fix it like this or fix it like that. I think only time will tell with that.
Got it. Family values, thanks for calling in. What do you got in the topic?
Hello. I'm sure you probably already know my stance. Thank you for having me on the panel.
Yeah, sure.
But I am, a very strong pro-life advocate. I've been doing this for at least 6 years now. Okay. And I wish Chantel didn't go, because I wanted to talk to her about what she's experienced in the foster care, because she brought up the fact that children are being held in foster care up till they're 18. Mm-hmm. But from the connections that I've gotten from being in these pro-life movements, there are many parents, many pro-life Christian or not even atheist parents that want to adopt newborn children, especially from women who are contemplating abortion. They want to be that. There's so many, areas and avenues of help that's out there. And I love what she said. Are we thinking about how are we going to help women? And a lot of the pro-life sectors and groups and movements, they have many nonprofits. Many people are spending thousands and thousands of dollars to help women who are, contemplating abortion, but only because of they're in poverty. So they're literally getting taken care of. They're getting doctors. And a lot of these women that don't want to keep the baby and would rather adopt the baby out, they are getting to pick parents before the baby even gets here. So there wouldn't be an issue of an influx of newborns in foster care if abortion became illegal.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't pretend to be the expert on foster care. I know a few people who do advocate for foster care, and I've heard plenty of unfortunate stories from people who have actually ended up through there. So there's a lot of room for opportunity, but I do agree that I think what saddens me, I think, the most is how, I guess, how life, essentially, like the whole question of life, is seen as so almost so frivolous.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. For me, I don't think that we should incentivize free, casual, or irresponsible sex. I never have, and I never would. And I don't, from a moral standpoint, I don't think that it's right or helpful. Again, apart from, the super chat that the person had said earlier, where it's like extreme scenario where a woman can maybe lose her life, or a young girl, God forbid, is taken advantage of and she gets pregnant and she has the baby, she could lose her life. Like really extreme scenarios. Apart from that, I don't see abortion as being really helpful. I don't see how not advocating for the life of the kid, how that's good. Because like advocating for the woman at the expense of another life. And I even saw some feminists. I was reading this in an article. You have some, I guess, pro-life feminists who are just like, yeah, we don't like the patriarchy, yada yada, but this is wrong. So
yeah, and to go further, I don't think Chantel was saying this, but I hear this a lot. People, pro-abortion people say, well, what about the children in foster care? What about this? Saying, what about the children that are having a bad life? And I don't think no life is better than a bad life. I don't think taking away the choice of a child to try to, overcome their bad life, because there's plenty of people that I've met personally that came from foster care who are doing great for themselves. I know personally someone who was at my wedding. She's a close friend. She's adopted into a family, and I don't think that she was dead. You know what I'm saying? So although I understand the humanity of it all, are we going to take care of these children? But at the end of the day, is the alternative to kill them instead? I think that's very barbaric. And I believe in the future, people are going to look back at history and say, what the heck were these people thinking? Why were they okay with killing children? Just like we look back on slavery today, like what the heck were these people thinking, that to say that Black people aren't human beings, just like they're trying to say fetuses aren't human beings. It's the same thing.
And it's funny because now we can look back at old societies that sacrifice kids and say that they're barbaric. So it is kind of interesting how under certain lenses it is seen as okay, and then other lenses it's seen as barbaric. And to your point, I wish there was more. I wish there was a lot more like of a pause and a lot more respect when it did come to like these very important issues. But women, I think, it's refreshing to hear your perspective and hear somebody that's also like, hey, yeah, I don't promote a woman just having sex and then God forbid she had a one-night stand, gets pregnant, and then oops, okay, let's just go. Like I don't promote that. I think you should be more cautious. Now, birth control, and that's what I was saying too. I wonder, because I think birth control is okay. I don't see any issues with that, although I do know that has its own side effects. But I just wonder if in certain instances that would be, or that could be.
Yeah, that's when things get really technical, because I've heard there's some birth controls that are like, what do they call abortion? I forgot the word that they use, that it basically kills the life of a child, but then there's some that prevents the life from happening.
I think if I'm not mistaken, is it Plan B or something?
Is it Plan B? Yeah.
So Plan B is definitely an abortion.
That's abortion, but it's like right after, which some, and that's another. This is where it can get technical, because it's like, okay, well, what is it, viability, or is like, does it have life versus not? It can get really technical.
If I may, Plan B is not technically an abortion pill. What Plan B basically does is, from my understanding of it, it floods a woman's body with estrogen in order to try to spur the cycle on.
Right. Okay. So it stops the seed from implanting in the uterine wall.
Okay.
So then honestly,
so it's technically a life already. It's already been, that burst of life happened, and then it prevents, the estrogen prevents that baby from moving to the next step.
Technically,
and that brings up the question as to when is life, because some people will consider life at the earliest sign, I think, of the germination. Some think of it as like, oh, as soon as the nervous system. So that brings up the whole question of, okay, at what point is life?
So
as soon as the sperm meets the egg and there's a burst of light that happens. Scientifically, when you look in a microscope, you will see a light when they meet each other, and that's when life begins. That's when it starts to divide and create and turn and grow. That's when life begins to grow.
So I'm not for abortion personally, but technically I would disagree with that, because naturally half of all, that's called a blastocyst, and half of all blastocysts naturally fail to implant within the uterine wall. And an abortion means basically that blastocyst has implanted and is viable and would develop naturally. I think we can take technicalities and splitting hairs, but that process of implantation hasn't occurred yet with something like Plan B.
Yeah. So I want to make sure, I know Jake had something to add. I know you kind of fell off, but I don't know if you're...
Okay, so just a few quick things. I see a lot of males caping for free cheap sex. Everything is about black people. All right, everything. As black men, we understand how to protect everything. We understand how to protect women, and we understand how to protect women's mental health, physical health, and all of that with the help of intelligent women. We understand that. So to bring it up like black men don't understand you need to be healthy, we got it. And then all of these abortions, all of these human beings, black women and a lot of black boys too, dead, right? So black kids always been gator bait. We know that, right? You know what gator bait is? Black babies. So yeah, with all of that said, we don't have a foundation of culture. You can see by the people we deal with, everybody's on something different. We don't have a culture here. We don't have a foundation. The West has implemented their beliefs in all of our heads. So that's what we got to deal with now. So it's always about black people.
All right, you guys have
yeah, I see your problem with that. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I mean, like I said, this has been a interesting topic. I think what'll be even more interesting is to see how things actually transpire. I mean, for all we know, they could totally switch it up and decide to maintain it, and we could all have had this conversation for nothing. I doubt it, just based upon the way that the Supreme Court is made up of. But it'll be interesting to see not only how this progresses, but what this could potentially mean moving forward for other issues. So
I say prepare for riots, especially if you're in a liberal city.
Yeah.
Prepare for chaos.
For sure. Also, you know what? You had mentioned you said that you know of different resources that women can access if they are considering abortion, but they need support financially, or maybe I want to make sure, maybe I misunderstood, but I think you were trying to building a case as to how you've seen women say that they're going to do it and then decide that they're going to keep the baby or do other things once they found out they had access to better resources.
Right. Yeah. I was just speaking on which I could get in contact with those resources, but I haven't been a part of that for for like a year now. I got off of Facebook, but I had a ministry. I called it Talk Solutions, and we had people, all types of people come in from different ministries, different people who just wanted to help women, and they would if there was a woman in need that was having a baby, didn't have diapers, people would Cash App or send her some stuff. Or I had like at least 4 or 5 different adopted or parents that was looking to adopt a newborn child that was being saved from abortion, things like that. But I still am in connection with a few people if you wanted me to send you any.
Yeah, because I wanted to share some more stuff too in my community tab about motherhood and stuff. Just since Mother's Day is actually coming up, and that's what I'm saying. I always think about that. Like, what if my mom was pro-choice? And she chose herself. right? Or whatever was going on in her life, and I wasn't here. Like I think about that. So, and I think what's oftentimes not talked about in these conversations is the repercussions that women who have aborted their kids, or the repercussions that they do have, the shame, the guilt. Now, I think there are a small minority of women who just they just don't feel right. They celebrate it, but I think in most instances, many women, whether they are pro-choice or not, or firmly advocate for abortions at any time, late term, whatever, they feel it. They feel it morally. It sits with them. I've talked to some of those women, and some of them they hold it like a skeleton in the closet for years. It kind of sits with them, their shame, and so those are the kinds of conversations that I don't think are necessarily had when we are talking about even the repercussions for abortions. So I think,
if you don't mind, I like to be transparent.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I've had 2 abortions, and
okay.
Yes, and I didn't realize that it affected me, but as I grew and matured and looked back, it did. I started drinking a lot more. I started smoking a lot more. I devalued myself, and I just ran away from the truth. I tried to stay numb from it. And I think a lot of women try to stay numb from it and act like, oh, this is just my right. They get into these echo chambers to help them feel better about their decision.
About what they did.
Yeah, and deep down in their heart of hearts, they know what they did, and it does affect them one way or another. Even if they don't consciously know, it affects them emotionally and mentally, and how they even see themselves.
That's first of all, thank you for sharing. I know that must have been it's a very intimate detail, but I appreciate you opening yourself up about that, because that's very, very, very honest. And I wonder how many of these women online getting kind of sucked into these echo chambers that are filled with hatred or just bad energy. Like, how many of them, to your point, are just kind of hiding from the shame that they feel already, or the guilt that they feel from those decisions, and haven't dealt with it. You make a really great point.
Can I say this to the young lady? I don't, even in liberal cities, believe it or not, I don't think white women gonna fight that much. I think they're gonna do what they're gonna do regardless. I might be wrong, we'll see, but I do think there'll be protests. There might even be riots, but I don't think it's gonna be to the level we might think. I think they're just gonna be like, all right, and then we're gonna just see how they move. They're moving to different states, or going overseas to have it, or whatever. Because for us, as Black people, $1,000 ticket, a $500 ticket, it's expensive. But for somebody that's kind of solid middle class, the ticket and the abortion, $1,100-$1,200, they'll eat that. That ain't nothing. Yeah.
Well, to respond to you, I understand what you're saying, and I agree. The thing is that although we don't like for this to be political, it's very political. There's
that's true.
Billions of dollars that go into this abortion. So from what I've heard is that I've seen it. I guess you can call me conspiracy theorist, but I've seen it where these people will pay people to start riots, and it will just build from there.
Yeah, that happens for sure.
So I believe that's what's going to happen. These lobbyists, Planned Parenthood, all these people that are about to lose a lot of money are going to make sure that there are riots.
Didn't even.
I can agree with that. I agree with that.
Funding, you're right. I didn't think about it, because how many institutions are funded because of this law, and how many of them are going to lose money if things change? I didn't even think of it from that way.
Lots of money.
Yeah, that adds a different layer to it, because if there's money to be lost, somebody's gonna fight. I don't care. Somebody's gonna fight if it's their paycheck and their lifestyle at risk. So,
well, just some of this was already kind of, I guess you can call it a leak, and then so there's already been like a groundswell movement online and social media, and across some of the mainstream television. Whoopi Goldberg actually gave a pretty impassioned speech about it, and she seemed to get a lot of agreement from the audience, and I think a lot of other women probably feel the same way. But then again, like I said, from a male perspective, I can't look at it that way, because I don't know, I don't understand the nuances of it from the female perspective. But there's going to be some residual effects that come out of it. There's probably going to be some adjustments as far as dynamics, behavior, and how people operate and function going forward as it relates to casual sex, relationships, marriage, and a few other things. So those are some second and third order effects that come out of it, to include as it relates to the foster care system, and then the programs that ma'am you have in place to kind of help people along their journey if it becomes a situation. So there's gonna be some changes. There's gonna be some adjustments. We just have to kind of see how it's gonna play out.
Right. You know, I wonder also how many women. I wonder also how many women just throw out of peer pressure, like you had mentioned in that scenario where, you know, Whoopi Goldberg had shared and most of the women agreed. I wonder how many of them secretly didn't agree, but they didn't want to be outed, because people get like irate, like want to fight you violent when you talk about this issue. And so I wonder how many women maybe morally are just like, actually, I don't really agree with this, but they're scared of the repercussions of standing.
It's my choice, Shay. It's my choice. I hear you, Shay. You're right.
Really violent.
How many closet pro-lifers, if you will, that we have who are literally just scared to kind of go against the sisterhood or to go against what seems to be a very aggressive, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
yeah, a lot of those closeted ones are the ones that say, well, for me personally, I'm pro-life, I would never do it, but it's anybody else's choice, it's not my business. That's usually the rhetoric they say.
Yeah, no, fair point. Yeah, I don't think what Chantel said about it being used as birth control, I'm like, no.
Yeah, it's getting out.
To me, the fact that we got this far to me speaks to a deeper issue, you know?
Mm-hmm.
As somebody, I saw multiple comments say like, hey, yeah, if we, you had stronger communities, stronger resources, things like that, some of these social, cultural issues wouldn't even be an issue, because you would kind of have functioning families, you know, it wouldn't be an issue. But because so much has been broken down, so much has devolved, we're having to deal with the repercussions. So,
you know, I'm an advocate for, let's see what happens when you get the ball, right? So now, you know, the brothers and well, the people, I don't even want to call them brothers, the people on the right have the ball when it comes to this subject. Let's see if it is, you know, a cultural issue and where this goes. That's why I'm giving it a decade or two, because that's when we'll see, because like I said, I think it's both and I think that exists. I think, you know, we become polarized and we can't say both and. I think it's both and we'll see. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I think it's sometimes you hear these conversations, it's like this or that. And I think
exactly.
there are certain scenarios and certain situations where it's like, no, two things can be true at once. Not all the time, but there are certain times where that can happen.
And that's my argument. My argument is, you know, we'll see. And so I agree with everybody. Like I said, I'm personally pro-life. But like, you know, we will see because I don't know if you could put the genie back in the bottle, is what I'm saying. I don't know if you can. We'll see, and I definitely could be wrong. I'm already putting that out there now. But especially what's going on, like y'all know, I follow a lot of news and I follow a lot of what's going on. Like I said, when they poll the people, the verbatim, these people say money. And could they be lying? Yeah, they could be lying. Maybe that's not why they're not getting married and having children. But I mean, that's what they're saying. So we'll see if that's true or not in a decade or two, you know?
Very interesting. Very interesting.
And we will also see who's going to step up and help these women when it comes to left or right, since we're being a little political here, because I believe, honestly, the right will be the ones who are going to be more active in being that aid for single mothers and women in these predicaments where they have unwanted pregnancy.
Yeah. Well, like I said, family values, if you come across any of those resources, feel free to send them my way. I'd love to share or post it on my community tab, for sure. Also, guys, I'm going to have to wrap this up in the next few minutes. I actually do have another call. But if you guys have any final thoughts or things that you would like to add before I close out, let me know. I can start with you, Kevin.
Great topic, Shay. You know, that's all for me. I think this is going to be a facet. Ooh, between automation, house prices, car prices, like everything, everything right now, the tenuous, precarious situation people find themselves in. I think the next decade, until 2035, ooh, boy, hey, it's gonna be an interesting ride. So we'll see where this goes. This got to be deliberated more, and we got to see how it goes through Congress, how it goes through the Supreme Court, and all of that has to happen. Right now, we're kind of just giving our predicaments and what this will lead to potentially. Like I said, I as a Black person, I definitely understand. Like the brother was saying, alligator bait, all of that, right? We know what this country is and its history when it comes to Black people, the eugenics program, like you mentioned, my alpha twin, like we know. Yeah. Let's see where this goes in the next decade or two and how it affects Black people and what we can how we can maneuver ourselves in this situation. Maybe we, as a community, get ourselves in a better position. You never know, so let's see. And that's it for me.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if there's ever going to be any like regulations or anything that are passed to address some of the more pressing needs that people have related to like inflation. Because I saw different polls that were talking about how that's kind of like the number one need that a lot of different Americans are talking about is like inflation and rising gas prices. And it's like, are we just going to kind of do the culture war stuff only, or are we going to talk about that? I don't know. It'll be interesting. So, Kevin, so you got anything?
Yeah, I would just say that I'd be interested in the wording that comes out of whatever the decision is, and if they make allowances for those extreme situations, and then how women respond to that. Because when it comes to women's issues, I try to just be the guy on the outside listening and try to do what y'all say, which is listen to women, right?
Smart.
And how you guys feel about it, and then try to support you and which way you want to go with it. Because there's things that women have to go through that men don't have to go through. So it's hard to say pro-life, pro this, or pro anything. Men just have to kind of look at this from an empathetic perspective, and then just try to help. Now, I will say a couple other things too. Is that I predict certain programs are going to come out that's going to actually try to facilitate improving that birth rate. Like, okay, if you get married, there's marriage incentives, there's children incentives, there's home incentives, all this other stuff and everything else to try to boost the population. Because, and I know he dipped out a little bit, but he is right that it's related to race. And yes, we're a part of it, but we're on the periphery of it when the government is thinking about these issues. Like,
I understand.
Yes, we're included, but we're on the periphery. We're like a third, fourth level, whatever happens to us is whatever happens to us. So we have to take charge of how our destiny plays out as it relates to all these rules that they put in place. Because you're right, it affects us more than any other group because of our socioeconomic status, because of the things that we have impressed on us. So yeah. All right, but hey, good topic. Thanks for letting me up, and thanks for coming up. I'm sorry, family values, right?
Mm-hmm. God bless you.
Yeah, thanks, sir. Thanks for calling in, Kevin.
Just to respond to what Kevin said really quick, I believe that men have every right to speak on this because that baby is half theirs as well. And
fair point.
I don't believe we need our men to speak up on this. I don't think you guys should be quiet at all. If you're pro-life and you're a man and you're afraid or think it's not your place, it is your place as the leaders of our community to speak up on genocide. I believe so.
It's interesting because this is so often positioned as like this is a woman's choice, this is woman's right, which honestly I love how you at the end of the day it does take a man and a woman to create a baby. And I personally am of the agreement that a woman, even if they were to say that, hey, abortion should be legalized in all manners and all types, I don't think it's right that can happen without a man's consent. Generally speaking, I don't think that's okay, because if it took two people to create that, then two people should be responsible for what happens to an individual. I'm probably a minority when it comes to that, but so I love how you added that, where it's like, no, that men may be shamed for speaking on issues that are framed as woman issues, but you know, they were kind of a part of it. So
yeah,
interesting, definitely interesting take.
I've seen at least 3 videos of men standing outside of abortion clinics, boohoo crying, begging his girlfriend, please don't do this, please. And he has no rights. He can't do anything about it. I just think it's such a huge injustice for both the baby and the father, especially if the father wanted his baby.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know of situations personally where that happened. They're dating, they get pregnant, he's excited, she's not, she does it without his consent.
I've heard of married women doing it and their husbands being upset. I think that and it's okay, even if she's married. So I just think it's horrible to push men out of this, because although the baby is growing in our body, that's partially his baby as well.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. No, I do agree with that. So great point. Yeah. Great point.
But to close out, so I can get up out of your hair, for the Christians out there, please be praying over the justices. I believe this was leaked in order to intimidate them and try to change their decision. So pray over their safety, their protection, their courage and boldness to stand on what is right. And also, if you do have a heart for this, please consider when God blesses you to bless others, you know, especially mothers in these predicaments. We're going to have to step up now.
Right. No, well, thank you. Thank you for calling in and sharing your story and sharing your perspective. Very much appreciated. Like I said, feel free, if you come across those resources you have, definitely email us. I'd love to look at them and share them.
Okay. So, all right. Thank you for having me up.
Yeah, anytime. All right, Better You, what you got?
Just for me to close out, I would just say, when it comes to personal actions, I'm actually hardcore conservative in there. I believe in personal responsibility, and I think a life is something that we shouldn't take with such callous abandon.
Yeah, I agree.
The one thing I will kind of push back on you is you kept framing your perspective as one of a minority, and it's not really, you're not really a minority in this sense. Like, there really isn't a majority. It's really more like a 40-40, 20 undecided. So nearly just as many people who are for or are against, and that's why it's such a polarizing topic.
I think I was going over what I saw when I was going over the Gallup poll, and it showed. That's what I was referring to. That I linked it in the description, but that's where it shows. I think it was 19% that said that it should be completely illegal, and then the others kind of had different stipulations on what abortion should look like. So that's what I was referring to.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I mean,
but it is a polarizing topic. It's because people see nuance on this. Some say, okay, after 6 months, or not 6 months, 6 weeks, it's bad. Some people say, no, it should be up to late term. Some should say it shouldn't happen at all. Some should say if it does happen, it needs to be. So there's so many different nuances. There's a question on, well, when does life even start? We saw that on the panel. So, and that is to your point, because there's all those questions and all those different things, which is why so many people are aggressive. Also, because it's like, if you've given somebody freedom, whether or not it's right, if you've given somebody freedom, or you said that they can do something and you take it from them, any person in that scenario, it doesn't matter if it's wrong, any person in that scenario is going to react. It's kind of like if you have a spoiled child and you've given them whatever you want. The first time you try to put value, you try to put standards on them, they're gonna throw a tantrum, even if they're wrong and they need those standards and they need that correction. They're gonna throw a tantrum. So I think because women have had this freedom, now that it's looked like it's being taken away, or they've had this freedom or these rights, right? That's making many people uncomfortable. So
no, definitely. And I would say especially for men, because a lot of us end up in situations like you were saying, where either there's a situation where there's a life coming into it and we have no say, and that that's on us. Like we don't have any say in that instance. Our say is beforehand when we lay down with them. And another thing to be aware of for men and women too. I didn't find this out till my first wife, but like weight and certain medications definitely do affect the effectiveness of birth control. Like I did not know until we conceived that certain things, if you are overweight, are frankly just ineffective at all. Like Plan B is one of those. Plan B.
Mary, I did not. You said so. Weight plays a component in how these things.
For certain medications, like Plan B, for instance, Plan B, one step. If somebody is overweight, it can make the medication significantly less effective.
Wow. Was not aware of that. Very interesting. So there's a lot of nuance to this, but also Shine Perfect Blackness 10. See, today was a great day. Feminism dealt a real blow. Up next, end no-fault divorce, abolish family courts, abolish child support, repeal welfare, not necessarily in that order. Thanks for the support. Well, Better You, this has been great. I do have to wrap this up because I have a call that I have to hop on, but I appreciate you calling in as always and sharing your perspective. It's always fun.
Likewise. Take care, Michelle.
You take care. All right, guys. So this was an interesting chat. This is very interesting. It'll be even more interesting to see how things progress over the next few months. You know, as I shared before, I personally do not agree morally with abortion. I understand the whole conversation of, you know, it's a woman's rights and it's a woman's choice. I just always think about who's advocating for the young kid. I do believe, though, that in certain instances, in rare cases, it is valid and it should be accepted. Rare cases being like, let's say there is a young girl who is abused and God forbid she gets pregnant, and that pregnancy at 9, 10, 11, which can happen, could cause harm to her life. Other cases where a woman gets pregnant, and if she has a baby, she could lose her life. So I'm thinking, you know, in very select, clear scenarios, I think that is where it should be at the very least considered or made available if necessary in like a life-threatening kind of situations. But as far as incentivizing, I don't know that incentivizing, the way I see it, just casual sex and conflating that with a woman's choice while a baby's life is on the line, I just don't personally, I don't see that as a win, and I don't see that as necessarily positive. So that's me. But like I said, at the end of the day, that's my position. You know, strongly influenced by my faith in Christ and God, all that kind of different stuff. I know there's many women out there who do not agree with that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But at the end of the day, what isn't happening is we know abortion isn't completely going away all across the board. They're leaving it up to states. So I think at the very least, what this will do, if it is overturned, is that this will make it more difficult for certain women to get access to abortions if they need it. Let's say they live in a state where it is completely banned. They may have to travel to another place to get it. If a woman doesn't have a lot of resources or doesn't have a lot of means, that could make it difficult for her to do so. So I think for those who are pro-choice, you know, if they continue to do their behavior or do their thing and they do have an abortion, I don't know. I think women at the end of the day are still going to do what they want to do. I don't think this is going to necessarily change. This is going to cause women all of a sudden to just have this great, you know, moral shifts in their behavior. No, I think people are still going to do what they want to do. You're going to see certain women do kind of like the back alleyway. You're going to see certain women try to travel to do it if they have the resources to do so. And you might see some women go through ahead with the pregnancy just because they feel like they have no other options. But we'll see. It'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting to see how this progresses. We know this is a very polarizing scenario, so I appreciate everybody for calling in, being respectful. It's okay, you know, sometimes you can agree to disagree on certain things, but Yeah, all I can say is we're gonna see what happens. So anyways, yeah, you guys definitely stay tuned. I appreciate also everybody for the love and the support. Also, shout out to Mr. Delta Guy for being like really a super supporter this time around. It's been good to see you here. I appreciate all the support. Appreciate all the panelists for calling in and everything. You guys definitely hit the like button if you haven't. Share it with someone if you found this helpful, and leave your comments in the comment section. Did I miss something? Am I not considering something? If you have another perspective, let me know. I'd love to hear from you guys, and stay tuned for upcoming content that we'll have later, and we'll talk later, guys. Bye.